it's really nice to be here. I have to say this organization, the level of organization what the FI Compass team is doing in their seminars is absolutely great. I'm really getting used to it now. So I keep coming back. And what a topic. Young farmers. We had in Estonia a seminar a half a year ago discussing the issue of young farmers, and there was one very active farmer taking the floor and making few points, the points which actually made the whole seminar rather quiet. First thing was that the message from this active farmer was that no one actually waits for newcomers. No one waits for new competition from young farmers. That's a very strong message. The other message was that less competition in farming means that you can more easily consolidate land into larger farms. And the third point was that if you have larger farms, they are probably more efficient and more profitable, which means that if the business is profitable, you see young people getting involved. So there is a kind of, I think, several messages we have to consider. The young farmers issue is not so easy as it looks. And I think this farmer had several good points making them. Well, we in Estonia have run in our foundation 25 years different financial instruments in rural areas. And more specifically from 2016, we started a loan fund from EAFRD, which is around 40 million euros as a budget. As you see, half of it is going actually to agriculture. And we have designed two types of loans. It's the design from the loans coming from the two sides. One side is the needs of the final recipients, and the other side is actually the financial policy of the banks. So we have to work together with the banks when we design those loan measures, trying not to crowd them out of the agricultural business. I have to say that this loan fund has been very popular. We are almost out of money, but of course we are receiving it back, so it's good. But the actual market cap in investments is around 100 million euros in Estonia, not 40 as we have. So we have no problem to push the money into the sector. We have actually more companies interested than we have possibilities. Well, going to young farmers, should young farmers use financial instruments? We do have several special conditions to several groups, like new companies, micro enterprises, producer organizations, and also young farmers. Those special conditions for the loans might be lower interest rate, lower requirement for collateral, or larger loans. In the case of young farmers, the decision or policy decision by managing authority was that for young farmers the special condition is actually lower interest rate, which can start from one. So it's I think it's more psychological advantage than the financial, but you may ask, has this worked, those special conditions? Well, from agricultural investments done by those financial instruments, more than a third of those projects were done by young farmers. I think it's very high percentage. What also I can mention is that there are some numbers here, what kind of interest rates we are running and how we do calculate GGE. But I think the most important is that half of those young farmers have done those investment with a loan without having a grant part into investment. So it has been simply business as usual, taking a loan, making an investment, paying it back. I think it's a very strong message, and it shows that for them the agriculture is a business as usual. what I would also like to mention here is that we actually do see more young people involved in businesses in rural area, in non-agricultural businesses. In rural diversification, there's a lot of young people coming back, trying to make their own new companies. And this has been something what we're happy to see, that we have more young people in rural areas, but of course not in agriculture. And just a final slide, which I think I almost can be deleted because it was relevant maybe 2 years ago. Now everyone knows why the financial instruments are good. The things I want to mention is that we are still, at least in Estonia, push decision makers in a way that the financial instruments are not only for market failures of banking sector, but also they are a very good tool for policy making. So there is always two sides in it. So we will probably run financial instruments more and more because we see that there is very good results. Thanks.
Madis, you are a man of very few but good words, which leaves me a moment to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. That was impressive, 27 out of 73 projects. That is a very impressive percentage. Just given that I think we've covered the ground enough of what are the general challenges for young farmers, and you were here to hear them, is there anything even more specific to where you're from in Estonia, any particular, and again, it might be linked to this whole rural diversification need?
I think the biggest difference will make this attitude as we speak about agriculture. Is it a good business, or is it something where everybody works 24 hours in a day? Now with a very fast technological development, I think more and more young people are actually coming in, but make those technological investments simply need a different kind of investment systems or instruments than it used to be. So I think this technology is carrying them on, and this is the, let's say, the aura of the agriculture, which helps young people to come in.
Okay, so that's interesting. So it could be one of the drivers to attract and to keep, but then the instruments have to keep up with that they deal with that. But you're what we would say in English, you are a dab hand at this in terms, you're very familiar. It's one of the first financial instruments to be used. So would you say, I mean, for other managing authorities, there's anything you've learned where you think things could be improved? Where there have been challenges? What's been your experience? What would be your recommendations?
Well, it might sound strange, but we haven't seen many restrictions. We are more or less happy with the legal background, especially after Omnibus. So it's, for other managing authorities, the message is that you have to calculate that your grants will not do everything. As I mentioned, that half of the investments are done only by loans, which shows that you can be much more efficient simply by loans and not making grants.
Sure. Okay. And coming up, because this is something I asked at the end of the last session, we've got the new programming period. We heard from EIB. What are your sort of thoughts if we're looking at financial instruments, you know, upcoming planning? Is there any thoughts that you have? What's in the pipeline? Anything specific?
Well, not only thoughts, I think it's very interesting. I mean, we already had the discussions here in this conference, so it's, I'm really glad that they are pushing this matter, and I think it will have much bigger future, I can say so. So it's for us, it's we're already working in the next period very hard, strongly. So it's everything comes in right time for us.
And one last, again, just to tie some threads together, because you mentioned that, if I caught that correctly, that you include the banks a lot in the conversation. You need to get them on side, so they need to be with you. So is there anything else you need to add about this relationship between the farmers, the banks, the managing authorities? Did we sort of say everything that's need to be said, or is there anything, again, specific to your country, your area, that you think, hang on a second, that needs to be thought about?
I think we had one very special situation that is that we actually cooperate with the banks in final recipient level,
Right.
not in fund level.
Okay.
What it means for a sector is that, it means that the farmer will take a loan from us and also from the bank for the same investment. What it means for a farmer is that he doesn't have to change the bank. He can take his bank, what is home bank, and then also ask loan from us. So it's more flexible from farmers level. We don't deal only with a few banks. We deal with everyone in the Estonian market. So it's and we do it in the final recipient level, which is unusual, I'd say.
Okay.
But it works.